From the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, this is the SDM Show with your host, Rob Cairns. The SDM Show focuses on business, life, productivity, digital marketing, WordPress, and more. Sit back, relax, grab your favorite drink, and enjoy the show. Here is Rob.
Hey everybody, I'm Rob Cairns. I'm the founder, CEO, and chief creator of Amazing Ideas at Stunning Digital Marketing. In this podcast, I have my amazing friend, Nicole Osborne, with me, and we're going to talk all things marketing. Nicole's a genius, so you really want to catch this episode. Sit back, relax, grab a drink, and listen to the great conversation Nicole and I had. This podcast is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing agency for all your business needs. We are also your WordPress security experts, having over 14 years of experience locking down, backing up, and protecting WordPress websites. Go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com for more info, or stunningdigitalmarketing.info for links to everywhere we can be found on the web. Hey everybody, Rob Cairns here. And in today's podcast, I have my guest and friend, Nicole Osborne, with me today. How are you, Nicole?
Hi, Rob. I'm really, really well. It's summer in London, yet it's really raining today in February, so quite interesting weather today.
Yeah. Rainy weather in London, England is nothing abnormal. It's kind of the city of rain, is it not?
It's certainly our reputation. I agree.
Yeah, it is so true. So before we dive into what we wanted to talk about today, I thought I would ask you, how did you get into marketing and why did you get into marketing and what drives you in marketing? So do you want to kind of take your origin story a little bit for me?
Oh, amazing question. Thank you very much, Rob. Well, so my journey back to marketing actually really started in 1989 when the Berlin Wall came down in former Eastern Germany. Now, I remember we were all feeling super elated, but at the same time, my parents lost their jobs, and it was a pretty dramatic experience. And to make ends meet, to make sure we had food on the table, to sort of really develop our family finances after both of them losing their jobs, they actually started to become market traders. And for a while, they sold all kind of things, weird, wonderful things people in former Eastern Germany were really craving. And what they did at the weekends as a teenager, they put me in charge actually of selling sunglasses at a small seaside town.
Oh, wow.
Now, do you remember, it was pretty scary because I was a shy teenager. And suddenly I kind of had to sort of step a little bit into the limelight, because I noticed fairly quickly that if I could listen to people really well, understood what they needed, really have a look at what suited their face shapes, their budgets, I could help them find this amazing pair of sunglasses, and they would really walk away with this sort of step in their with sort of happiness, because I'd absolutely delighted them, and they would also send all their friends back. And why this really worked was my parents had me on commission. So if I did a good job, I would earn a little bit more money. So it was a pretty early light bulb moment that sometimes you have to step into the limelight, even though you don't feel like it. And if you can then really listen to people, see what suits them, and find something which solves their problem. And in that case, they wanted to look cool with sunglasses. Mm-hmm. You could actually do really, really well. So fast forward lots and lots of years, I studied marketing. I had a corporate marketing career. About 8 years ago, when I set up my own business, I was at that point again where I wanted to just completely hide away and not step into the limelight. And I went through this massive learning curve, and I actually realized the people who I love to work with most are digital agency owners, really talented, do amazing jobs for their clients, but kind of hit their own wall with their own marketing. Yeah. And I help them build ladders. So yeah, this is how I really got into marketing. Always loved it, but it was really from the early memory of selling sunglasses relatively successfully as a child or as a teenager.
That's quite interesting. And you say to solve their problem. And isn't that what marketing's all about, is solving a problem? Like, I like to point people, when we think about stuff like that, at Simon Sinek's book, To Start With
Mm.
Why. And that's kind of become a classic in our space. And the reason why I have it, Simon talks about his book, is the why. What's the problem? How do I solve it? And we know that brands that don't solve problems don't do well, right?
Absolutely. So it's showing how you solve a problem, but
Yeah.
also then solve it better than anyone else. Because, at that small market center, there were lots of people selling sunglasses. So I wanted to attract the attention of the right people for the kind of sunglasses I sold. So yeah, absolutely. There's so many parallels with what marketing is all about. I couldn't agree more with you, Rob.
Yeah, and then we talk about, standing out, and it was one of the places we were going to go today. And I think the biggest problem is companies, and even big brands, Fortune 500s, are so guilty of this, is they don't find a way to stand out. And I was thinking, before we jumped on this today, about some brands that stand out. And somebody said to me, a colleague, what do you think of McDonald's as a brand? And I said, you know what? McDonald's is probably the most successful franchise in the world because they stand out. The Golden Arches, the McDonald's characters back from 20 years ago, Ronald McDonald. And I don't know if you remember, there was a time when they had all the McDonald's characters as a kid growing up, even on cookies, believe it or not. So like hamburger and all this. So there's a brand that stands out, and it's timeless classic. And then you look at another brand that stands out, that I'm just kind of coming to my head, is I'm a game player. Like, I still like to get together with friends and play board games because they're fun. And we all still play Monopoly. And
Oh yeah.
Monopoly's a product that's got 50 or 60 years, very simple game, but it stands out because of the marketing behind them. What do you think about brands like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So McDonald's, I mean, it's obviously also that brand consistency
Yeah.
across the globe, right? So, no matter where you are in the world, you'll always have a similar experience. And you're right, you could just see a small area of their logo, and just with a couple of the colors, you know immediately who it is.
Mhm.
So they must have made a really conscious decision over the years how they would put themselves above the competition. And you can see so many brands which have tried to copy them, right? I mean, we could just go down our local high streets, no matter where we are in the world. They really invested in their marketing, right? And when we see the latest sort of McDonald's, they feature their customers all the time, and this whole staff, how they come across. It's kind of such an experience.
Yeah.
And yes, that's all well and good when you that kind of have a huge marketing budget, right? And you work with lots of agencies and you have huge teams. But Rob, I'm always fascinated. So what does that actually mean for smaller businesses where perhaps they have to do their marketing on a shoestring budget, right? How can they learn from these kind of examples? And I think what you said, making the decision to stand out and having the consistency in brand assets over time makes a massive difference and can only be a plus. So, one brand I love to add to that list is probably IKEA. Because
Oh yeah,
I'm always,
no question.
I'm always fascinated how people from across different countries pronounce it differently. In German, I'm originally from Germany, we actually say IKEA. But you go to the store and the colors, and it's everywhere with the same kind of experience. And you talk to the staff members, and they have always ethos of being like really, really helpful. And it's just, in a way, it's great because you can take IKEA pieces and you can customize it, and their marketing, they show you all the different homes and what you can do with it. So yeah, really, really clever and standout marketing. I couldn't agree more. So we've got McDonald's, IKEA, and what was the third brand you mentioned? I'm missing one. Oh, you mentioned two brands. You mentioned.
Geez, my mind already goes blank.
Never mind.
But you get the idea. And IKEA's funny because I'm an IKEA shopper, and I remember when IKEA's weren't these big warehouses. Their first stores in Canada were these small little stores. You went in, you got stuff you left, and now we've gone to the big warehouse concept. And what's happened in the big warehouses, they actually show you what to do with their products and what concepts to build in their warehouses. It's really interesting. And then you have to walk through the whole warehouse to get to the checkout. And then, by the way, before you get to checkout, you have to go to the marketplace where they have all the cool little kitchen gadgets, where you're going to spend money. And somewhere in the middle of an IKEA, there's a restaurant, right? So if you're hungry,
Meatballs.
meatballs, we all know. And and the new concept they're trying in Toronto, which is quite interesting in Canada, is they have these small little stores now that aren't big warehouses in downtown urban locations. So that if you're buying stuff and you're downtown, you can have the thing shipped to the downtown store and do a pickup there as well. And still get your meatballs, by the way.
Fantastic. And one of the objections I must have had over the years is, oh, I don't know how to pull things together. I look at your diagrams and instructions and they still don't make sense. Now, I'm really very lucky. My husband is very handy with that. I have got no clue. But I've noticed that over the years, they've really listened to that, and we're now promoting additional service where not only can you get it delivered to your local store, but you can also book someone to bring it to your home and to help you put it up. So I think that's brilliant how they realize that not everyone is handy with sort of terms of pulling these furnitures together, but they're still interested in having their good quality, sort of, low to medium price range furniture in their home. I think very clever marketing, but also listening to the feedback. So that's another good sign, isn't it, for standing out?
Yeah, so true. And then the other thing that helps you stand out is when you take a brand and you create raving fans. And the
Yeah.
best one in the world is a company that just passed a $3 trillion valuation, and that is called Apple. Apple
Oh,
has
yeah.
Apple has made a career. I know guys, every time a new iPhone comes out, every time a new iPad comes out, every time a new MacBook comes out, these people spend money on Apple tech like guys spend money on cars. It's just stupid. They go out, a new iPhone's out, I need it today. A new iPad comes out, I need it today. And Apple has done such an amazing job over the years. Started with Steve Jobs and then has just gone on after Steve Jobs and the legacy left, creating raving fans. And if you can create raving fans, you're off to the races, aren't you?
Oh, completely. And one of their key skills, in my view, is that they're focused. When he came in, he got rid of a lot of the products, and he said, "No, actually, we're going to focus on this and make this the most amazing solution in that marketplace." So, yeah, no, it's a brilliant story. And even to this day, as you say, you talk to a group of people, and either they're Apple fans and really raving Apple fans, or they're on Android, and it's like really, it's like either Marmite, you love it or hate it. It's a little bit like that. It's absolutely fascinating. And then they do the local launches. Oh my God, in London, the queues on Oxford Street and in Covent Garden are just so long. People even, they sleep there overnight just to get the latest model. Wow. I mean, this is a lot we can learn for branding then, right?
Yeah. And then we were talking a couple of weeks ago, actually more than that now. And one of the things I always say is if you want to learn a bit about branding and standing out, my favorite book is called The Inside Advantage by Robert Bloom. And the reason it is Robert talks so much about let's not fight the price to the bottom unless you're a dollar store chain. That's a different market. But generally, as a rule, if companies keep fighting these prices to the bottom battle, they're going to end up out of business very quickly. And I really have an issue with saying to a client, you should cut your prices. I actually think most clients should increase their prices and take on better clients than cutting their prices and taking on more clients. What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, price increases takes confidence, right? You have to sort of really consider how you're going to communicate that. Because yes, you're likely to come up against some resistance. So how are you going to justify that you're increasing your prices? But in my view, every business ought to have a plan in place for how regularly they increase their prices. Because as business owners, you and I, we have this responsibility to our clients to have a sustainable business. And increasing your prices is reflective of the fact that we learn more, that we invest in new tools, that we become so much better in our delivery and execution over time because we gain all this experience which we put together, and every new client and every existing client really benefits from that. So absolutely, well, I think it's so important to regularly increase your prices. And even though sometimes it can be painful and you might be worried about, oh, will I lose anyone? And yes, maybe sometimes you do lose people. But if you plan it carefully and you can demonstrate that you're increasing in value all the time, you can do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and frankly, at the end of the day, I'd rather lose the people that want to pay the bottom basement price because they're usually the ones that are going to cause me the most grief. I hate to say it. So
Absolutely.
that's the point of view.
Do you know,
So
I had this experience really early on in my business journey that so my son was really, really young. We put him into full-time nursery, and gosh, full-time nursery in the middle of London is hugely expensive. So I was two things. I was very selfish with my time early on because, as soon as someone hears, oh, Nicole, you're really great at social media or you do LinkedIn, can we just have a free coffee and can I just pick your brains? So this happens a lot. But also on the side of proposing my rates, I had to really learn how to make them viable for me and how to increase them as my portfolio grew. Because I didn't want to have a business where I had to work like 20 hours a day. That wasn't my kind of vision. The reason why I had to set up my business was so that I wouldn't be too stressed and too tired when I was dealing with my 2-year-old. So that was a really good discipline. And I'm helping agency owners to really also have that disciplined approach, to really value your time, be happy to sometimes say no and just say, well, look, if you want me to help you, here you can book a consultation with me. This is what it's going to cost you. But also price well so that you can invest in the latest tools, you can outsource things, you can have time for agency growth. So there's so many things which are dependent on you being able to price your service as well. Because if you're staying on that one level, your growth potentially can stagnate because you don't have time to grow your business, to do these key projects. So no, I think it's very important. And for me, my key motivator early on was the huge nursery bills that I had to sort of pay. And that was a real good motivator for me.
I think one of the biggest problems with most agency owners, and I'm don't consider it a problem for me, is they refuse to outsource. They say we want to do it all in house. So it's funny, they're going to clients and saying, buy our services, outsource to us, but they decide they don't want to outsource. And the problem I have with that is, first of all, you're not doing what you preach, first of all. And second of all, you can't possibly do it all. And that's a problem. I mean, and I think a lot of agency owners just need to say, hey, maybe I should get this piece of work outsourced. And it can even include simple things like their accounting internally or the legal stuff internally. I have to tell you, I hate doing accounting more than most people. So at the end of the month, I just hand it to my accountant with a box and say, here, I'm done. Deal with this for me. And he's like, you can put these entries in. I say, I know, but I can't be bothered. There's other things I can do to make more money. So just do it for me. And I think they don't look at the big picture all the time.
Absolutely. And I think that's where the opportunities come in with smart outsourcing, right? Is that you can free up your time to focus on the things where you, as the agency owner, add more value. It makes complete sense, right? We can sometimes outsource things in our house. So I'm laughing, but if it's certain things you really can't stand doing, if you can get some help and you're helping that person as well. And then in turn, as you said, for your business, I love working with my accountant because he also shares a lot of expert advice with me. When the year's up, we will look at everything, we will review the year, we will make plans together for the next year. And yes, I'm good with my numbers, but I don't have that level of expertise. So by outsourcing that, I buy that expertise, and as a result, my business does better. And it's the same in my content creation. For my YouTube channel, I absolutely have to admit, like exactly what you said about accounts, I feel the same about editing. It's just not my thing. So I choose really good editors, and they help me be better and they help me make it all happen. So that's a win-win situation, because if I also had to spend time learning how to edit, and probably I do sort of half-hearted, really bad job, then that would prevent me from doing all the other things which can make a huge difference to my business, whether it's being on amazing podcasts like yours, Rob. Thank you very much for having me today. Or speaking engagement, or creating blogs, or interacting on LinkedIn, whatever it might be. You have to sort of be realistic with what time you have available and how you can spend it smartly, and also how you can buy back time. I think that's also really important.
Yeah, it's so true. And buying back time is a big thing. So let's jump into, a really interesting topic. It's hard to do a marketing conversation without bringing up two dreaded letters called AI, right? I mean, where we're at. The world is AI crazed.
Yeah.
So before we go down that road, what I would argue and say, we've been dealing with AI longer than AI being fashionable. So for example, If you're a Photoshop user, I would bet you've been using brushes and tools for many, many years. Well, I'm going to tell you guys, that's AI, whether you want to admit it or not. So we've been using some of these tools. And then this thing called ChatGPT came around, and it kind of ruled the world. And we've all seen the conversations about job losses because of AI. I personally don't think AI will cost jobs. I think it's just a tool like anything else. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, do you know, I'm absolutely fascinated by it, and I'm probably always on the late adopting side. And I was the same with AI.
Yeah.
So it actually took for some of my clients to really have a chat with me and to share their screens and show me how they use the tools. So whether that's, as you said, ChatGPT, or Bard, or an image creation tool, or I also love Lavender AI for emails. But once they showed me on their screen and I could sort of grasp that potential, I was really happy then to start using it for my own business. And I used to talk, actually, we are both friends with Vito Pellick, the
Oh, I
founder
know
of
the group.
Adream. And I know I think you spoke at this year as well. I did as well. And I actually did this whole talk about how to stand out in an age where we have AI, and how do you stay relevant as an agency owner. So I felt it was a good idea to use AI tools to come up with my talk structure and to come up with some of the images. And what I found so amusing, it really opened my eyes about how when you're not really advanced at the way you prompt AI tools such as ChatGPT or Bard, the output you get is so generic. And it was such an eye-opener for me. I even showed this slide saying, look, this is the talk structure according to ChatGPT, but those of you who know me, you will know this is not what I'm going to use, because I know this is going to send you to sleep, and that's just not my kind of style. And I'm also always about sharing great examples. So for me, with AI, is to really helping business to embrace it for the things where it can save them time, idea generation, customer service, wherever it's appropriate. But really knowing that you have to find a way of still making the output sound like you, and still having that unique experience. Because if you're already in an industry where there's so many similar service providers, if you just stick to what you get as the first output from these amazing tools, it's just going to be really vanilla and almost robotic, and it just, you sound like everyone else. And I really cottoned onto that when I chatted to ChatGPT. I'm always very polite, because I think it needs to learn that we're all very polite. And I asked for content ideas across different sectors. And frankly, a lot of it which came back was 80% of it was always exactly the same. And it was a huge eye-opener for me, just for how generic it is. And that doesn't even include the issue of the information not being up to date because of what it's based on. But no, I'm fascinated by it, but I think it also has its limitations. So we need to be aware of those as marketeers, when it's our job to get noticed, to get our brands noticed, to get our clients noticed. So be aware of those, but yeah, definitely use it.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning that Vito's also a partner in a company called Bertha.ai.
Absolutely, yeah.
With another good friend, Andrew Palmer. And that, for those who don't know, that's a product that runs within WordPress, but they've now got tools that will run outside of WordPress. So that's another option. There's a multitude of tools out there. And I agree with you. But I think AI can be a good starting point. And this is the thing is, if 80% of it is the same, and you're a business, that's not helping you stand out, is it?
Absolutely. How are you going to get noticed by the kind of people you want to work with? Do you know, I actually think Andrew and Vita have done this really well. And I know they have Stephanie on the case with their marketing, Stephanie Hudson, another good friend of ours. You know, Bertha AI has got this female persona. And I love that, because, you have obviously Jasper AI, ChatGPT, Bard, and they're all male voices, right? So I love it that right from the word go, they distinguished themselves from that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. When you get the feedback, you need to know, what am I going to use to stand out? Perhaps there are specific phrases we love to mention, a certain sense of humor, specific references. Figure out these real practical things which can help you to stand out. I mean, Rob, you probably noticed about me that I talk a lot about being from former Eastern Germany.
You do.
And I do, right? And that's been a really strategic decision, because I realized whenever I chatted to my friends, those were the stories which people tended to remember. And I thought, well, if it works for my friends and my peers back then at university, why not use that in my own marketing? Because frankly, there's so many marketing consultants out there. And the things I lived through, the experiences we had, a lot of people find it fascinating. And I love to share it. It's also nothing too personal. So my family is comfortable about me talking about these things, because I think that's also really important. When you're an agency owner, you need to make sure that the stories you share, you're comfortable with, they show you in a good light, but you've also checked in with your stakeholders that they're happy for you to share those. I think that's another really key ingredient to success, really.
Yeah, and I think stories like that, and in your case, that makes you stand out the way you do it. So going
Thank
back
you.
to this whole thing about being different and doing it, and it's not about saying, I lived in East Germany sucked, and that kind of thing. It's, here's what we went through, and here's some of what happened, and here's how we can learn from what we went through, and that's more your story, and that's really important. I mean,
Right.
I often share the story about, I'm in marketing, I've done really well, how I almost, and I've shared it with you, how I said I would never be a marketer if my life depended on it. So things like that. And that's not to be negative. It's about sharing your journey, and people love storytelling in marketing.
Right, and you also talk about being a gamer. It's great leaning into your geekiness, so to say, and I say this in a really respectful way, because
I know you do.
if you add AI tools and what makes you different, whether maybe you're into music, or you're into gaming, or you're into certain kind of movies, it really gives you an easy way of standing out. And also it's a little bit, Rob, if you and I met at a party, we probably would talk about sort of some easy topics first, right? Maybe I would comment on a game you mentioned, you said about Monopoly. Maybe you would comment on me being from Germany, because both are easy topics just to build that initial rapport, right? And I think that's sometimes where people missing the trick, if they're not willing to stand out and open these, have these open conversation openers, whether this is on your social media or in your email marketing. It's tough for people to reach out. So you want to make it easy for them. And sometimes showing some of the things you like is, it could be quirky. You might be worried what your peers think about it, but you're not creating your content for your peers. You are creating it for your potential customers.
It's true.
Right? So think about what you could use to stand out. I sometimes talk about loving German pretzels, not generally too. It's like the first thing we get when we go back to Hamburg. But it's an easy conversation starter.
No, it's so true. And we got to realize that. The other thing we got to be very careful about AI, and I hate to go here, is this dreaded word called copyright, because
Absolutely.
we've all been there. So I know from some reading I've done recently, Getty Images, who is probably the biggest image producer in the world, they're on a copyright tear right now, because AI is picking up a lot of Getty images. And these are images that they license for thousands of dollars sometimes. So people got to be very careful, especially with the images and content, of where the original source is, because there's always that potential that copyright could be violated in AI.
Yeah, completely. And I'm only sort of scratching the surface with my reading around that. But obviously, it's really important that you have the copyright for images. So my preference for images is actually still taking your own photos when you can, getting a photographer to help you. Because as you said, you have these issues of, well, what if you create this amazing content and then it's, in the end, it's not your own? So yeah, that's still kind of a line which still needs to be refined. And it is going to be interesting to see how this pans out across the world. And all the different jurisdictions, absolutely.
And now, not only do we have copyright problems, we've got privacy problems with AI. I don't know how much you've read, but I know in Europe, the EU's looked into privacy complaints with ChatGPT. I know in Canada, the Canadian government is now looking into privacy complaints with ChatGPT. And that could be a big issue down the road, and one that we haven't solved. And then last but not least, I hate to say it, there's been a couple bad actors who has actually used ChatGPT to make malware. And then there's
Yeah.
that other side of it too, right? So we have some issues going on, don't we?
Absolutely, but that's always the case with those new developments, right? It's just part of it. So yes, for me, the reference I usually refer to is actually a fellow German entrepreneur. You might know him, Jan Koch.
Jan is a good
Jan,
friend of mine.
right,
Yes.
he's lovely, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he really, at the moment, helps a lot of German businesses really understand the opportunities and some of the challenges presented by AI. So when I want to kind of get to grips with what's going on, what are the latest news and implications, I usually read Jan's newsletter or go to his website. His
So do
blog
I.
is amazing.
Yeah, Jan's been on the show. He's a dear friend, and he gets that side of it, like so much so, and so much that the Twit network in Petaluma, which is Leo Laporte's tech network, they're actually starting a podcast. That's all with Jason Howell. That's going to be all about AI, believe it or not.
Amazing.
Coming down the pipe. So I think AI's here to stay. It's how do we move forward from where we are now to using it more successfully. That's the big key, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, I think even Stephanie Hatton is planning a podcast around the topic. I heard it somewhere with her dad, interviewing her dad. So her generation and her dad, and talking about technological advances and really explaining them to him. I can't wait for that.
It will be
brilliant.
It will be off the chart knowing Stephanie as well as I do. So, she's all in with AI. I would say I'm all in with AI. I have been for a long time. I've actually used AI to write some base content, and then I go in and edit it because we all know it's too generic. I have an email sequence I just sold a client for a mid 4 figures that 50% of the base work was AI based and then modified. So it's a tool. It's a tool like we use a page builder to do a website or WordPress. It's just another tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one of my service packages is Wonder Content, where I work with a client to come up with a strategy, particularly for LinkedIn. And we do a strategy, a doable strategy, which really helps them to create content which engages, which entertains. I think that's really important as well, and which converts. And then on a monthly basis, we create content for them. And yeah, absolutely, we use AI to come up with ideas. But it's really about digging deeper, right? And getting to a real conversation opener kind of topic ideas. But I think that is the key with tools such as ChatGPT. Don't just take the first set of feedback, but ask more questions and ask the question the other way and just refine it. You know, Rob, I think that's sometimes where we challenge, that you could sort of really get stuck in this rabbit hole. I think sometimes it's really good to set yourself a limit. Say, okay, I'm going to do this now for 45 minutes and that's it. Because, you know, often when we have a specific time window, we actually achieve what we need to achieve, right?
Yeah. And I think you're right. You know, spending some time on LinkedIn, I think we need to educate people how to use LinkedIn properly, because everybody thinks LinkedIn and they think these spammy DMs that every one of us get every day that says, can I sell you a service? I had one last night at 11 o'clock before I was going to bed, and a guy was trying to sell me, of all things, Shopify services. And I'm like, no.
What?
And I do WooCommerce, so that's not happening.
I know.
And I finally got fed up with him. He's like, I want a partnership. I said, no, you don't. You want to make money. But if you want a partnership, you can send me a check for $5,000 US and we'll talk. Like, you know.
Oh, you had some fun. You had some fun.
I'm at that point. But what I was saying, when it comes to LinkedIn, you're one of those people that I look at what you're doing. Another guy is David Gearhart, who you may know. Not know, used to be up at Drift and Privy and is now back on his own because David can't stop. And there's people like that I look at and say, okay, what are you guys doing? And I think you do LinkedIn really well, actually. So.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You know, I really see LinkedIn as a sort of extension of real life networking, and this is how I treat it. I don't worry too much about how many followers I have, how many connections I have. For me, it's about the conversations in the comments, and then also in the direct messages and the leads I get from it as a result. What I find often with agency owners, they still see LinkedIn as this really formal platform, and it has evolved so much since Microsoft took it over in 2012. And yes, in some ways, people still go on there to find new jobs, but it's not any longer just a virtual kind of resume. You got to bring it to life. So it's that mixture between sharing your expertise. And Rob, you will know the latest LinkedIn algorithm is all about sharing our expertise again. So that's still really important, but then also attracting meaningful comments and placing meaningful comments, which I always think is like your superpower. So I talk to agency owners a lot about that. And, I hear this objection so loud and clear. I don't want to use LinkedIn because I receive so many spammy messages. And Rob, I could not agree more. There's lots of spam going on. But two things I say to that. First of all, make sure you don't add to this kind of spam, which you wouldn't, right? Because if you're a good communicator, you wouldn't be spammy. You wouldn't just send out these really boring messages which are not researched. So don't contribute it. And secondly, arguably, email marketing. How much spam do we get in our email inbox? Have we stopped using emails because of it? No. Right? So I think you got to just always see it in that context. And the one thing I particularly like now about LinkedIn, if you create your own LinkedIn feed as and you comment on the kind of post you generally find interesting, it's actually a really fun and informative platform, right? But you've got to put in more work. You've got to like the kind of post you generally are interested in, look up the hashtags which are relevant to you, and then you can just grow this global beneficial network. I mean, look, you and I, we've met each other virtually at events, but it's in the end, I think it was we contacted each other via LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. And that's the value of it, is you do what we did and you contact somebody, and then you move the conversation off social somewhere else.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the reason for doing that is, let's be honest, Facebook's a mess right now. Twitter is a second mess right now. We've got at the time of this record, we've got our friend Elon now limiting the number of tweets you see every day, right? That whole spiel.
What about the long form content? Suddenly when you pay, is it 25,000 words? Surely the whole attraction at Twitter is that it's this fast-paced, newsy kind of environment. How does that fit in if suddenly you can have like 25,000 words? Hello.
Funny, I was having this conversation with my son on the weekend, who's 32. And I said to him, you stay off Twitter. And he said, that's actually not true. I have a hidden Twitter account that I use just to keep up with news and sports. He said, I don't reply. It's basically a feed. And the reason is, we know for immediate reactions, Twitter is still the place to go. Even with other networks like Mastodon and Blue Sky kicking around, they're not quite there yet. They will. I think Blue Sky is probably a bigger threat there than Mastodon, in my opinion, being on both of them. But I think the one thing I was going to circle back to is LinkedIn hasn't changed the rules very much. They're trying to lock down the spammers, and I know this in terms of talking to people up at LinkedIn, but they haven't really cut back. They've actually increased. Like, you can stream live to LinkedIn right now, for example.
There's an explosion of tools, right? Or you can create a newsletter from your personal feed or a newsletter from your agency's company page. You can host or attend audio events. Now, I haven't really tapped into audio events so much because they disappear. And I always love the idea of creating evergreen content because, we spend time on it. So I want it to be there for longer. Groups. I know you are the administrator, one of the really powerful, biggest sort of WordPress-related groups on LinkedIn. Now, the beauty of joining groups is, yes, you add value, but you can also connect with the people in the group. So it's a really, really, really good tool. So yeah, new features are coming out all the time. I think I mentioned this to you at the end of last year. In the UK, we had the first UK Content Accelerator program. And I actually applied for it because, why not get direct training from LinkedIn? And I was chosen, and we were a cohort of 130 people. We had a 6 weeks long program with coaching and training and all of it. And we even got a grant for it. I have to be honest with you, Rob. When I sent in my application, I didn't even know we would get money for it. I'm like, excellent. But no, it was amazing. But you know what was actually really, really nice? And I think this circles back to our initial conversation. about branding and what makes brands stand out, because it was for me the first opportunity to really get to know the LinkedIn team a little bit better. So we have an office here in Farringdon, and we had our mentors, and it was just nice to not just see it as this big, biggest social media platform, but actually see the teams behind it and how hard they're trying to test out new features and to really make it a better platform for us. So that was a nice thing to happen. And I think actually, right? But when you have the experience where you get to know a little bit behind the scenes what these people are really like, I think that's massive. And I think that's such an opportunity actually for smaller businesses and agencies to show actually how do they make their work happen. What kind of culture do they have? Because, clients and marketing roles, sometimes corporate jobs can be boring. There's a lot of pressure. Sales will be on your case. Maybe the MD will say, I need you to get a new agency. We're not happy with what we currently have. There's a lot of stress. So as the agency, if you can present yourself as the people who can deal with these kind of last minute changes and be a friendly partner to help the business shine and get the results they're craving for, and that's a really powerful marketing tool. And too often, I see with agencies, and it would be great to get your take on this, I see with agencies that it's all about the tech stack, and it's almost hiding behind really fancy technical graphics, but not necessarily sharing off the teams. And I think that's actually a lost opportunity.
I do too. I think the problem, I always say to agencies, don't sell that you're doing WordPress for websites. Sell what you give the client. Sell the result. Don't sell what tools you're using to generate the content. Sell the result. Like it comes back, and I always say, sell the result. The end client really doesn't care.
Absolutely.
90%. Now, there are some exceptions. Like, for example, one of the things I do is I provide WordPress security services directed to clients and to other agencies. That I have to sell as a WordPress tool because that's very much that. But beyond that, sell, and even when I market that, I sell the result. What does it give? A, B, C, D, E. That's what people care about. They don't care if it was Scootsy. And that's part of the problem with websites right now is people are still in this mode. Oh, I got to throw 10 sliders. We're still in that mode again. And I got to do this and I got to do that. What people need to realize is, how do people find you? How do people get information quickly? And if they're looking up your website on mobile, how do they get directions and how do they call you quickly? Those are the most important things.
Absolutely. Rob, that's really beautifully said. Most people don't know the difference between a WordPress website or a Wix website. And I know everyone else does, but most normal people don't. And they don't care about it. In addition to all the things you said, also, how will they make me feel when things go wrong? Because we've all been in digital projects, no fault of the agency or the client. Things get delayed, briefs get changed, budgets get cut. Maybe a new senior person has come in who completely changed the script, so there is no sign-off. So how is the agency going to work through that and help the client, the marketing executive or the marketing assistant, still succeed? And just talking about which tools you're going to use it's not going to show that, right? I give you an example from my own agency. Absolutely amazing. So our joint friend, Lee Jackson, we both know him really, really well. You've been on the platform, right? Been at this event. And my agency founder, Tom from Design Box, he knew I was speaking. His team had helped me with my presentation, and he didn't tell me this, but he actually brought his laptop to the event just in case if I needed a backup. And I thought that was just the sweetest thing ever. I've always been very loyal to them, but it's those sort of small touches. And I have my experience, agencies really care about their clients.
Yes.
And everyone will be able to share those kind of stories, which are relatable to other marketeers and other people wanting to book agencies. So share them, because how do you make your clients feel? How do your processes and your milestones in the delivery really help you both do a better job? Give that insight, because we hear digital marketing or email marketing and most minds go, oh my God, what is this all about? There's so much to it. So talk about it in ways, as you said, what are the results? What results are you delivering? What is the transformation they're getting by working with you? I think that's so important. And I think that goes back to our original concept of how people can stand out from the competition. It's by doing those things, by knowing what makes their approach unique and how they can make that relatable to what their clients are looking for, to show that they're the best solution and that there should be no one else they should be working with.
Yeah, that is so true. And also communicate as an agency your processes to your
Yeah.
customer. Because I find where agencies get in the problems is they have a list of processes and then they break them because the customer wants them to. I've seen this a million times. And I'm awful, and I'll admit that. I don't break my processes. So one of the strict processes I have, and I'll share the story very publicly for the first time, is if you book, generally I work better when clients book time with me. And my booking links are everywhere. My clients have them, they're in my newsletter, they're on my website. It's easy. And I've explained this to clients over the years. So I had one client recently who went in and said, forget this. So I'm going to book 16 days of appointments in case I need them in a row. So they went into my schedule and booked Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday. And I went back to the client and I said, you can't do this. I'm canceling them all. And I actually was really nice about it. And I I emailed all my clients and said, by the way, don't do this, please. And by the way, if you're confused about how to book time with me, here's a link to the booking policy of how to book with me. I have a link on my website. So what did the client do? They decided to create another email account and tried to do the same thing all over again. And it's like, okay. So we're good. And basically the client is in a fired state right now. Because the problem is my policies are all defined. They're easy to get at. And by the way, the other thing you should do is put those policies in your contract, or at least links to those policies, because I don't think a lot of agencies do a really good job of communicating the contract and or the policies to their clients.
And also what happens from signing to and then the onboarding. And there's such opportunity for one of my agency owners, one of my Bundesstars in Florida, really brilliant at this. There's a dedicated presentation, a dedicated meeting where everyone gets introduced and they know exactly what the key milestones are. Because it's really hard for clients to understand that once they've given you the briefing and you've done the discovery phase and the agency really knows what they're meant to be doing and you signed up a first concept, the agency goes into work mode, right? But suddenly the client is sitting, oh my God, I've just paid my deposit. What's happening next? I'm kind of feeling lost. I heard a lot from them when they wanted to get my business. I heard a lot from them in the initial phases, but now everything has gone quiet. It's absolutely natural that things get quiet. But as you said, going back to that, Rob, what you said, communicate that upfront with your client that this is going to happen, and tell them what to look out for, when to expect feedback. Also simple things, Rob, like at what stage are you expecting them to sign off specific things? Because even for me, that I've worked in marketing now for 23 years, I've worked with so many agencies, either in my corporate roles and now, I still forget that at certain stages you just sign off the content, the layout, then the specifics. So you need to always educate your client. And actually when you do, and when, like you just said, you insist on your processes, that makes you look like the expert because you are an expert, and that shows confidence in your way of working. So yeah, don't be too flexible, because there's a reason why you put these processes in place, because they work for you and they work for your clients, right? But that kind of takes the mindset and it takes confidence, right? And I think when you forever sort of firefighting, you're just dealing with the next possible problem that comes up and really focus on your client work. It's hard to get these processes right. And when I work with my Wunderstars, it's that real parallel approach of, yes, we're working on your marketing and on your sales, but we're also looking at your processes and how you make things happen, because that is equally as important, right? So it's got to be that mix.
One of the hardest parts I find as an agency owner is the client promises you stuff by this date, and how many times I've heard it. Word didn't work properly. It ate my homework. The dog ate my homework. We all know the phrases. And it's like, but you made a commitment to deliver this on this date. And because of that, this date and this date pushed back. And I've gone through it even recently with this problematic situation is they delivered 5 days late. And I went back to them and said, you know what? Your schedule's now pushed back 3 weeks. And they're like,
Yeah.
but I'm like, no, you made a commitment to deliver on a Monday. You delivered on a Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And I told you I had Tuesday and Wednesday put aside exactly to deal with your stuff. And you chose not to meet that date, so that you get reprioritized. And clients don't like to hear that. But I think agency owners need to sometimes push the responsibility where it needs to be put to, right?
Yeah, I totally agree. And you see many agency owners who actually won't start, for example, a website project until they have signed off copy. And I think you're right, re-educating the client at all times. I found when I had my own website built and my new brand, because my agency had worked on that relationship with me, I felt really committed. I wanted to be the best possible client. So I pushed myself to stick to deadlines, to make my feedback straightforward. Now, I know that's not always possible, but try and build that relationship early on, because we know when things happen as a client, if you really, really want to make it happen, you can still do it. It's strange, but it's just something when we have a commitment to a project. So if you can foster that really early on and really building that rapport and having that excellent relationship, and it also kind of works both ways, doesn't it? I know when I worked with agencies in the past, I set out to be a good client, so I would only ask for urgent things when they were really urgent. I also then knew that sometimes the agency would be really there for me. You know, let's say if I had this last minute board meeting and I was a marketing director and I had to do an update on a project, I knew if when I really needed to, I could call the agency after hours. At the same time, and I would really respect their time frame. So it works both ways. Now, I know that's not always the ideal scenario. You know, life just doesn't happen in that kind of Barbie world Ken scenario, right? But the more you can proactively manage your clients and make it easy for them to understand what is required of them at what stages, and really help them to deliver that for you, I think the more successful the project will be all around.
I agree with you. What kind of projects are you working on these days? You working on anything exciting?
Well, I'm really focusing on my Wunder content service at the minute. So really working with agency owners, thinking about what they want to achieve on LinkedIn. It's fascinating when you as a marketeer work with other marketeers, and it's really shaped my approach. So for example, strategy work we do together. Because if you're a talented marketeer sitting in front of me, you will buy into more of it if you do it together. So I take agency owner through a step process. And I love it because it really helps us to have these light bulb moments. And what makes you different? How can we use the assets you have? What works for you as a team? So at the moment it's summer period, so I'm limiting the spaces I'll give away, because we're going into a period where I'm going to be in Germany for 3 weeks. I'm going on holiday, and I want to really make sure I deliver amazing work for my clients. But so I'm doing that at the moment. I'm also going to be working on my own content, and I'm not really ready to talk about it. But the thing I love most is really these sort of agency examples. So last year I did a lot of work on talking to agency owners across the world and finding out, what made them successful. What things do they wish they had started doing sooner? What questions they would have loved to share with their peers, which you would never find on Google. And I collated all this good information into a free download. It's my agency growth ebook, and you can get it on my website, wunderstars.com, for really actionable tips about how to grow your agency, ranging from sales approaches to creating processes, to approaches to developing your personal brand. So I found this area is absolutely fascinating to really help people grow their own businesses, and giving them that confidence, right? Often, Rob, it's about confidence and mindset, right? And right, in many ways, I'm like a growth cheerleader, because agency leadership also can be quite lonely, right? I mean, Rob, you and I, we both know it for our own businesses. This is why we connect with our peers, because it's lonely sometimes.
It is. That's amazing. And if somebody wants to contact you about work or otherwise, how's the best way?
Yeah, Rob, the best way is actually my website, so wunderstars.com, and you find all the links, all my freebies for agency owners right on there. So wunderstars.com, and LinkedIn as a social media platform. You find me on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, and I would say if you don't know Nicole, get out and follow her. She's a breath of amazing information and energy, and she knows what she's doing. So get to know her. It's well worth your time. So.
Dankeschön, Rob. I appreciate that.
And thank you for joining me today, and have an amazing day, Nicole.
Oh, super. Thank you very much. And thank you also for the listeners. I can't wait to see all the comments and questions. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Stunning Digital Marketing, the digital marketing agency for all your business needs. We are also your WordPress security experts, having over 14 years of experience locking down, backing up, and protecting WordPress websites. Go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com for more info, or stunningdigitalmarketing.info for links to everywhere we can be found on the web. A very special thank you to my good friend Nicole Osborne for joining me on this edition of the SDM Show. This podcast is dedicated to my late father, Bruce Cairns. Dad, I miss you very much. I love you, and I think about you every day. For more information about Stunning Digital Marketing, your digital marketing experts, go to stunningdigitalmarketing.com or go to stunningdigitalmarketing.info to find out all the great places that Rob Cairns can be found on the web.